Although there's a steadily growing pool of excellent electric cars to choose from, naysayers will rightly point out that there's always been one thing missing: a really great electric driver's car. Yes, several of today's crop can make you giddy with their Formula One car rivaling acceleration, but point them down a twisty road and they'll leave you a little underwhelmed. Well, if any car can put that right, it's the Porsche Taycan. It certainly seems to have all the right ingredients, including the lowest center of gravity of the famous German brand's lineup. And this isn't some highly impractical supercar. It has rear doors, enough space for a couple of adults in the back, and a hatchback boot that can hold roughly the same amount of clobber as that of a Volkswagen Golf. As well as an entry-level version called the 4S, there are also, perhaps confusingly, two versions called Turbo and Turbo S, but trust us, no matter which version you choose, there's no petrol or diesel engine lurking under the bonnet. This is a car that runs purely on electricity. The cheaper 4S is the one to go for if your priority is a long range between charges, while both the Turbo and Turbo S get more power and extra standard kit. But which is the better buy? And is any version of the Taycan as good as the Tesla Model S? Over the next few pages, we'll tell you all you need to know. Unsurprisingly, you won't get a discount on the Taycan for quite some time, but we could potentially save you a small fortune on a variety of other electric cars. Just visit our new car buying pages to find out more. While developing the Taycan, the biggest issue Porsche had to battle with was weight. You see, the batteries that electric cars need in order to give them a decent range between charges tend to be very heavy. This is why the Taycan weighs several hundred kilos more than the slightly larger Porsche Panamera. However, as much of that weight as possible has been positioned low down in the car, and the Taycan feels remarkably agile as a result. True, every Taycan we've tested has been equipped with clever active anti-roll bars, dynamic chassis control sport in Porsche speak, to help its cause, but, when it comes to grip, balance and resistance to body roll, the Taycan is in a different league from any electric car that's come before. Of course, if you start to really push on in normal mode, you do get a little more vertical movement over crests and compressions than you'd experience in a lighter ICE performance saloon such as a Porsche Panamera, Mercedes-AMG E63S or BMW M5 competition, but switch to Sport or Sport Plus driving modes and this unwanted body movement is virtually banished. You can physically feel the body squat down over the taut suspension and the whole car starting to move as one. In the latter mode, the car is locked in its lowest setting, sitting a whopping 22 mm lower than the default setting, yet the Taycan never bottoms out or catches its nose through big compressions. It's a truly remarkable bit of chassis tuning and one that marks the Taycan out as a class leader. The same goes for the Taycan steering, which gives you a much better sense of its connection with the front wheels than that of the Tesla Model S. That's partly thanks to how nicely the weight builds as you turn the wheel, but also due to its accuracy. Every millimeter of movement has a subtle but noticeable influence on the car's onward trajectory. Yet despite this lack of slack in the chassis, the Taycan is remarkably plush over rough surfaces. With its relatively small 19 inches wheels, the 4S deals with bumps and ruts brilliantly. It's the most comfortable Taycan for those who need to make long journeys, but it's arguably the Turbo S that is most surprising, the range topper remaining compliant and never fractious despite coming on enormous 21 inches alloy wheels. BMW and Mercedes take note. The only real disappointment in terms of refinement is that there's considerable road and wind noise at cruising speeds. It is worth pointing out, however, that it's the absence of any petrol or diesel engine racket that makes this so noticeable. Optional on the Taycan Turbo and standard on Taycan Turbo S is a feature called Electric Sport Sound, which at a standstill pumps a synthetic rumble through the speakers to let you know that the car is alive. Squeeze the accelerator pedal and that rumble will turn into an accelerative thrum that makes your Taycan sound like a Star Wars podracer. Say "ooh" out loud while going up a couple of octaves and you'll get the idea. It's an interesting concept, and one that will no doubt impress passengers, but we reckon after a few weeks of use you'll simply turn it off and forget about it. Perhaps the most impressive facet of the Taycan's performance is its acceleration. Every Taycan has two electric motors that can drive all four wheels, but the power those electric motors produce depends on the model you choose. The 4S offers 429 bhp as standard, rising to 483 bhp if you opt for the Performance Battery Plus option. That figure rises to 617 bhp for the Turbo and Turbo S. However, all Taycans can offer boosted power for short periods of time, with up to 750 bhp available in the Turbo S. Unsurprisingly, the Taycan is very fast, even the 4S can crack the 0 to 62 mph sprint in 4.0 seconds dead. The Turbo S can do the same job in 2.8 seconds, only fractionally longer than it takes a Tesla Model S performance. It's very good at stopping, too. Unlike those of many electric cars, the Taycan's regenerative brakes, which recapture energy that would otherwise be lost during braking and feed it back into the battery, are predictable and feelsome, making it easy to slow down smoothly. As for the more practical considerations of owning an electric car, the 4S can travel for 252 miles between charges in standard form, or up to 287 miles if you choose the Performance Battery Plus option mentioned above. Meanwhile, the Taycan Turbo S can officially manage up to 256 miles on a full charge, with the Turbo model promising up to 279 miles. You'll struggle to match those figures unless you drive very gently, but over 200 miles should be easily achievable no matter which Taycan you go for. If a longer range between charges is required, though, the Tesla Model S is a better choice. Put simply, the Taycan beats every rival electric car for interior quality, even the Audi e-tron SUV. Every surface, switch and knob you touch feels suitably upmarket, and this certainly isn't the case with the Taycan's closest rival, the Tesla Model S. The driving position is superb, too. You sit closer to the ground than in most electric cars, so you immediately feel like you're in something properly sporty. The seats are wonderfully supportive through corners, but they're also comfortable on longer journeys. That's a good thing, given the Taycan's reasonably long range between charges. If you like tech, you'll appreciate the 4 touchscreens you can have in the Taycan. 3 of them, the one behind the steering wheel and the 2 in the middle of the dashboard, are standard, but you can pay extra to have one for your front passenger, too, which allows them to see things like your speed, the sat-nav map or their own media content. The main instrument cluster behind the steering wheel is a sleek-looking, 16.8-inch curved digital screen that's fully customizable, capable of showing you everything from the navigation to how much G-force you're generating in the corners. A very neat feature is the touch controls for the lights and suspension that run along the edges of the cluster, preventing you from having to dive into the central system to change essential settings. The central 10.9 inches touchscreen is also impressive. It's mounted high enough up on the dashboard that you can see it easily, and most of the icons are large enough to find at a glance. Only when you get deeper into the menus do you find smaller icons that are trickier to find while on the move. We also like the addition of an 8.4-inch touchscreen below the main screen. You don't get this in the Panamera, which incorporates an input pad that can be used to select different applications on the main screen, enter addresses into the sat-nav or control the flow from the air conditioning vents, a bit like how you can in a Tesla Model 3. You can even add another 5.9-inch screen in the rear so your passengers can control the 4-zone climate control. Overall, it's a great setup and is easier to use than that of the Tesla Model S, although systems like BMW's iDrive that come with a physical rotary infotainment controller are less distracting to use on the move. And a word of warning for Android phone users, you won't be able to use smartphone mirroring. Porsche offers that feature only to iPhone users, courtesy of Apple CarPlay. The Taycan isn't the impractical weekend toy you might be imagining. It's slightly smaller than the Porsche Panamera hatchback, but not by much, and its 2 rear seats have enough leg and headroom to comfortably accommodate a couple of 6-footers. So far, we've only tried versions fitted with the optional glass roof. There's a good chance that the Taycan will have even more headroom without this feature. If you need to carry 3 people in the back, you'll have to stump up a little more money for the optional, occasional, middle rear seat. This option also brings 40/20/40 split folding rear seats. Without it, you get a 60/40 split. The boot is plenty big enough for a buggy, a few suitcases or, indeed, a set of golf clubs. In terms of outright load space, the Taycan is roughly on a par with a Volkswagen Golf, although its boot isn't especially tall. There's also a much smaller storage space under the bonnet that's often referred to as a frunk. It's suitable for the weekly shop or for soft luggage, but not much else. Overall, though, while the Taycan is reasonably practical, the Tesla Model S offers a bigger boot and more space in the back. Even the cheaper 4S version costs more than the Tesla Model S performance, and Taycan buyers don't get nearly as many luxuries as you might imagine. Keyless entry, a rear-view camera and adaptive cruise control all cost extra, for example, although you do get a handy system that pre-warms the battery so you can get the most out of it as standard. The range-topping Turbo S comes with a longer list of standard equipment but also pushes up the price by tens of thousands of pounds. In short, this isn't an electric car you buy with even half an eye on your bank balance. As for charging, rates of up to 270 kilowatts are possible, thanks to the Taycan's super advanced 800-volt electrical system. This, in ideal conditions, allows a 5 to 80% charge to take less than 25 minutes. You'll need to find one of the handful of Ionity charging points in the UK to get close to this charging speed, though. And, if you opt for the 4S without the Performance Battery Plus option, your maximum charging rate is capped at 225 kilowatts. Meanwhile, a full charge 0 to 100% from a 7 kW home charger will take about 13 hours. There's a 3-year warranty on the Taycan itself. Its battery is covered separately for 8 years, with a guarantee that it won't drop below 70% of its original capacity in that time. Reliability is much harder to predict. We've little to go on, because this is Porsche's first electric car in more than 100 years. However, the brand finished a relatively disappointing 23rd out of 31 manufacturers in the 2019 What Car? Reliability Survey.